welcome all of you to our third annual 6 over 70 event. We are very excited to be here this evening to celebrate positive aging and our amazing honorees who have given back so much to our community. So let's give them a quick give. So just so you know kind of how the evening's going to flow, we're going to have dinner first, and then after dinner we will hear from Dr. Richard Frost, who is the president of Chapel Hill Foundation, and then we will be very happy to hear from our former Assemblywoman, Janet Dubert. I'd also like you to know that we have Katie Cantwell here today. Katie, you have to stand up for a second.
That's water, I think.
Katie is here on behalf of Assemblyman Billy Jones. Unfortunately, he won't be able to join us. He's in session and he's always busy. He tries to get everywhere that he can, and he is sorry that he's not able to be here this evening. However, each recipient will be receiving a citation from Billy Jones as well this evening. So enjoy your meal and your conversation, and I will be back in a little while. Thank you. We're going to start our program this evening. So I would like to invite Dr. Richard Frost to the podium. Dr. Frost is the president. He's the president of Chapel Hill Foundation, and Chapel Hill Foundation actually helps offset the cost of this wonderful event that we're having this evening. So, welcome.
I guess the most important thing to say is thank you all for being here. It's great to see this kind of a crowd. Now, Maria told me at a meeting about a week ago she wanted me to speak and say a few words, so I said fine. I took a breath, and then she said, now, at most you can be up there for 2 minutes. So I said, okay, that'll be fine. I thought about it, and last year when I did this, I told some baseball jokes, but I'm not going to tell any baseball jokes. That'll save time, and when your baseball team is the worst team in the major leagues, you don't really find anything humorous to talk about. The person I'm going to quote instead of a baseball player is going to be Kurt Vonnegut, of all people. For a lot of years, and I'm not even sure I'm completely over it, but I've been pretty determined for a long time that I'm going to change the world, and people have kind of banded together to show me it's very difficult and I might not succeed in everything I plan to do. And about 15 years ago, I read a comment that Kurt Vonnegut made. I don't know if it was a commencement address or if it was some interview, but he said, there's too many people out there trying to change the world. The people who really do important things are the people who do things that are local. I thought about that for a while, and it began to register. And then tonight, in planning and thinking about this event, I don't think we could demonstrate what Kurt Vonnegut means any better than by honoring the 6 people who are going to be honored here tonight. So on that, with no mention of baseball, but no mention of Kurt Vonnegut, I'm going to turn the proceedings over to Maria. Thank you again for coming.
Actually, this is one of my favorite people to announce, or I'd like to introduce, is our former Assemblywoman, Janet Dubert, my friend, and I'm sure a friend to all here. So, with no further ado, welcome, Janet.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I expect that most of you in this room know that I have given, I don't know, hundreds of speeches over the past 40 some odd years. This is the first time I've had the privilege of honoring 6 of my peers. Okay, we're all over 70. Some a little over 70 and some a little more over 70. But what a great milestone for each of you to be at this point in life and receiving recognition for your careers and your volunteer activities. We've all 7 of us have crossed paths, not just as peers, but as friends. And I can't tell you how lucky I feel to make that declaration tonight. I'm not going to speak about each individually, although it was a great temptation because I truly know that I know each of you well enough to do so. I know you have folks introducing you, and I'm going to leave the honor to them to talk about your careers and, more importantly, your community endeavors. I hope that 5 of you don't mind, but I am going to take just a moment to recognize the Connecticut peddler. Stan Ransom, you and I have worked together for well over 40 years. At 91, Stan just keeps going on, going on. Stan, your bio in the press tired me out. And it occurred to me that if they in fact detailed each of your accomplishments, they would have had to have printed a special edition. Congratulations to all, but you're an icon. The main reason that everybody's being honored tonight is for volunteer contributions. It's one thing to be recognized appropriately so for career success, for the professions of your choice that you pursued well. But it's quite something else to be recognized and honored for volunteering. You might have noticed there's no pay. You put in uncalculated number of hours because you recognize the importance of serving your neighbors and your communities. Retired or not, I'm sure your volunteering began during your careers, and it will probably last as long as you breathe and have a pulse. Although I can't speak for you, I can take an educated guess that when you started your careers, you never once imagined that some of your proudest accomplishments, some of your greatest satisfactions would come from volunteer opportunities. Aren't we lucky? Over the age of 70, and we still enjoy giving back. That feel-good reward for helping others. Solely because you want to. You know, I'm really not sure it gets any better than that. Let's allow ourselves a moment to kind of look back. I'm pretty sure, along with your success, you've overcome some challenges. Okay, perhaps like me, you wished a couple of times you could have had a do-over. You've provided incredible insight for the younger generations. You know, that group under 50? You pass along the wisdom and the personal satisfaction that comes from volunteering to ensure that younger generations will step up. Aren't we lucky to be over 70? And most days have the energy, the desire, the ability to get up and get going. The opportunity to do good things for others. But you know what? Maybe just as importantly, for ourselves. It's great to face the day and know you're useful, you're needed, and you're involved. Oh, some days are a little harder than others to get moving. That's when I have that extra cup of coffee. I thought of a quote from the late President Ronald Reagan. He said, "I've laid down the law to everyone from now on about anything that happens. No matter what time it is, wake me. Even if it's in the middle of a cabinet meeting." Yeah, some days are a little tougher than others. Let's ponder about the numerous not-for-profit organizations that are going to be mentioned here this evening. They help all aspects of the population, our towns, our North Country, the United States, and even into foreign countries. Without volunteer efforts, can you imagine the tragedies that so many people would face? Your unpaid volunteer work is priceless. Indeed, we are lucky. The North Country is a better place because each of you are here. You live here, you've worked here, you continue to contribute untold hours in the causes you believe in. You've earned this honor that you're going to receive tonight. I'm proud to be with you on this occasion. Well, I'm going to share a secret with you. I am the most proud to call each of you a friend. In closing, I want to say thanks to another great friend, Dr. Rich Frost, for having the foresight to begin this amazing event. And thank you, Maria, for inviting me to be a part of this program. Enjoy your evening.
So just a quick note, if you noticed in your programs, each individual, we are making a contribution to their favorite organization, so in their honor. So our first honoree that I would like to bring up is Stan Ransom and his wife, Chris Ransom, who will introduce him.
Good evening. Can you hear me back there, Mary?
Yes.
All right. Every day, I try hard to work hard to make my life worthwhile and help others. One day, I noticed this sentence on a little piece of paper on the bulletin board in my kitchen. Handwritten. Stan posted it there to read each morning as he gets up to start his day. To me, this is Stan. Stan was born in Winston, Connecticut in 1928. While in high school and college, he worked for the Connecticut Forestry Department. He almost became a forest ranger. He served in the Army of Occupation in Japan. He graduated from Yale University, majoring in the history of ideas. And he graduated from Columbia University with a master's in library service. His career as librarian included the New York Public Library. Yes, the library with the big lions out front. The New York Public Library, then he moved to the Huntington Public Library on Long Island. From there, he came to the Clinton Essex Franklin Library System in Plattsburgh, and then the Plattsburgh Public Library. Also, for over 20 years, he volunteered in the CVPH library. While in Huntington, Long Island, Stan became interested in Jupiter Hammond. Now, Jupiter Hammond was a slave who was a poet who lived north of Huntington from 1711 to 1805. Stan researched Jupiter's life and wrote a book about him. It came out in 1970. Stan continues to research Jupiter's life. He has a 3rd edition ready to be published. Stan originated Black Poetry Day around that time. It is celebrated nationally on October 17th, the birthday of Jupiter Hammond. SUNY Plattsburgh has invited noted Black poets for 34 years to read their poetry on campus at the time of Black Poetry Day. In 1978, Stan proposed the Olympic Winter Sports Museum in Lake Placid. He served as a trustee for 13 years until Orta took over the museum. So, as you can guess, Stan is a real high-energy person. In fact, in high school, one of his nicknames was Rapid Transit. In addition to library work, researching, innovating, writing, he loves music. I understand that he started singing in his crib, singing along with his mom. I have that from reliable sources. For more than 65 years, Stan has been a musician and folk singer, playing guitar, hammered dulcimer, auto harp, mandolin, and other instruments. He has over 40 instruments in our house. Probably more, but I know it's at least 40. Stan is also a storyteller, and for several years he did a series of storytelling for young children. As most know, he is named the Connecticut Peddler. He has over 10 recordings of New York State folk music. In 1998, he wrote the Ice Storm song, During the Ice Storm. With the help of Carl Coates, they made and sold copies of the song, also during the ice storm. Sale proceeds of over $2,000 were donated to local Red Cross disaster relief fund. In 2005, he composed his City of Plattsburgh March, arranged by Andrew Lauer, then of Plattsburgh State. It was for bands playing at the Battle of Plattsburgh celebration in September. He presented the score to the Plattsburgh Mayor and Common Council. In 1998, he was named Irishman of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce. Since 2000, Stan and I have volunteered for the Battle of Plattsburgh, teaching over 40 children's games played around 1814. Stan has been a member of many groups over the year, including the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission, Sons of the American Revolution, and Rotary Club. He was the North Country's AARP coordinator from '92 to 2005, and worked in Albany to pass legislation of value to seniors. These days, you can find Stan volunteering with me Mondays through Fridays at 5 a.m. in the skilled nursing facility at the hospital. Please welcome Stan Ransom, my best friend, to the podium.
Thank you, dear Chris. Thank you, Maria, for doing all of this good work. And I'd like to thank the organizations, the Chapel Hill Foundation, and the United Way of the Adirondacks, Clinton County Office for the Aging, Senior Citizens Center, Clinton County, JCEO, and the foundation at CVPH. It's a wonderful that thing that you're doing here today, and it really highlights the positive events of being here in Plattsburgh, the finest city in the world. Oh, Plattsburgh is a city, looks out on Lake Champlain, and if I ever leave you, I'm coming back again. You're the finest little city in all of New York State. You're the finest in the nation. and numbered with the great. It's a place to earn, a place to learn, a warm and friendly spot where we guard our low electric rates and punch our apple crop. We're the easiest to get to, we're upon the Great North Way. And once you've come to see us, we hope that you will stay.
So next I would like to call up Calvin Castine and Jim King. And Calvin, turn that camera off. So he can't go anywhere without a camera. So Jim King will introduce Calvin.
Go ahead.
You know, in this world, there are many things that you can't be sure of. But I'm sure of one thing. What I say here tonight is not going to be enough said about this gentleman right here. Calvin was born in the Champlain Valley Hospital, Glassburg, April 20th, 1947. He graduated from the fantastic St. Mary Academy in 1964. He grew up on the family farm and now resides in the same family farm with his wife Judy, who he has married over 43 years. Calvin has lived in the North Country all of his life. I had to put this down on paper because I like to ad-lib, but I didn't think that was fair to Calvin. Calvin was a freelance writer for Sick Magazine from 1964 to 68, a reporter for the North Countryman newspaper from 1975 to 1976, worked at Sheridan Iron Works, Harris Graphics, from 1966 to 75, in 75 started work for the Women of the World. In 1986, Calvin went on to start Hometown Cable as a means of using the media to provide influence in the community, showing what's best about his favorite North Country. Is the Hometown's Cable motto. Since that time, Calvin has recorded approximately 500 events annually. That's annually, not just what he's recorded since he started, but that's 500 events annually. And over 20,000 pieces of local history. He tirelessly has promoted our area churches, fire departments, close to myself, thank you, EMT veterans, local businesses, local history, our schools, and our students. He has recorded every send-off for the North Country Honor Flight. He is not retired and has no plans to do so. Calvin and family members have worked at St. Mary's Bazaar in Champlain since its inception in 1968. He served as Games chairperson for a 10-year period. This year will mark the 52nd Bazaar. Calvin is also working with the town of Champlain and the Northern Tier Little League to establish ball fields located across the road from Northeastern Clinton Central School. And with that's one of the most important things going on with our little leagues today, because folks forget about baseball and the importance in the growing up process of our children. He was an officer for the Lake Champlain Slow Pitch League and formed 2 adult leagues in the 70s, the Northern Basketball League and the Northern Soccer League. He was vice president of the first non-for-profit senior housing entity in Northern Clinton County, and that is extremely important, certainly in the time of needs of the senior citizens. As co-chairman of the Northern Tier Labor Day Muscular Dystrophy Association Telethon, he has produced 4 local books. Of these books is a photo history of the town of Champlain called Champlain 2000. This is an extremely brief synopsis of Calvin's ambitions to volunteer the many hours he has done with, along with his wife, to show people outside of the North Country what this great, fantastic area is. Calvin's public service is beyond reproach. His heart for the North Country is more than evident. Since I have known Calvin for 45 years, it was my privilege to give you Calvin Castle.
Thank you, Jim, and I want to thank Mary and Joan for the nomination for this. They were too cowardly to get up here and do that. So Jim had to do it.
Jim did a good job.
Although the first time I appeared on television, I did sing. I'm not going to sing. When I was 8 years old, Channel 5 was relatively new. It was a program hosted by Chet Bosworth, who many of you probably remember from the radio days. But when WPTZ first started, it was WIRI, and Chet Bosworth worked at the radio and the TV, and Bert Bernand did, and he had a thing called Bar 5 Ranch. So on my 8th birthday in 1955, I sang, and my Uncle Ronald said if I sang on that show, he'd give me $1. So I sang Leaning on the Little Top Rail. I paid my first $1.
Professional singer.
I'm not going to sing tonight. So I'll clear the house out. Give you $1. I think the money coming in for not singing. I'll do that in a hurry. I do want to thank all the groups that are involved in putting this on. It's very thankful for that, and Maria and all their staff and everybody. I want to thank you all for being here. Of course, only 3 people showed up for me, but it's nice.
We had to.
Gordy is here, and so is Bob Venn in spirit. The park that Jim alluded to is Bob Venn Park, where the Little League is going to go in. So yeah, Gordy has a bridge named after him, and Bob Venn has a park named after him. Very proud of both those guys. As Jim said, I grew up on a farm, so you learn that the workday is 7 days long when you grow up on a farm. You have an older brother who's working around the clock. You kind of feel guilty if you're not trying to do something positive. As the newspaper article said, without my wife, I don't know if I wouldn't be here, so she'll be pushing me out the door. I'm not quite sure why she does that, but so I guess that's about all I want to say, need to say. Appreciate the honor. Thank you.
He actually had 4 people sign up for him. So the next person I would like to bring up to honor is Ann Biesmeyer Bailey and her brother Bob.
It is my pleasure to be here tonight to introduce my sister Ann. I'm her little brother Bob, and I did prepare a speech, but it's easy to give Ann a tribute because we grew up with 3 children, running an inn that my parents started after they immigrated here from Germany, and when my father died at an early age, we sort of all chipped in, did what we could to try and make it a success. And after that whole experience, Anne, when she went into teaching, has really dedicated her whole life to helping other people all the time. And I know, can name several. There's Rose, who had to immigrate from Rwanda, and she opened her doors to our house, got her started here. Amazingly enough, she found a job, her children raised here. And there are just so many examples of where she has sort of made her home a home for other people who really, at a certain time, could use it. So, I mean, something that very admirable quality. And even for us, like my son, who has been on the U.S. Olympic team for a few years, and because of the event that he skis in, which is the speed events downhill in Super G, they're not able to continue their college education. So, but I always keep telling him, try to use your brain as much as possible, Joe, but instead of just beating it into a tree. So Anne very selflessly put together a great tutoring program for him. And he got very proficient in German, thanks to his, online tutoring program, which he did. So it's a real honor to introduce my sister to you, and thank you very much. And it was a real pleasure to see all of you. I mean, what a great group. You see so many people who spend their lives just accumulating possessions, and just to see a group like this that spends their life giving is something that is a real impact. Thank you. You're welcome.
Bob now runs that family business called the Mountain House, and it is the most beautiful place in the Adirondacks. I'm a little bit biased, but we were very, very lucky to grow up there. And if you head through Keene and you drive up East Hill and you're going towards Hurricane Mountain, the Mountain House is up there on a hill, and it's just beautiful. So I want to thank you all for coming. It is just wonderful to see this big room full of people, and we have so many connections. And as Calvin said, you can't even kind of figure out why you know this and that one at every table, but it's wonderful, and thank you for coming, and thank you for the hosts as well. So, yeah, you get in the paper, and you're one of 6 over 70, and it's like, I can't lie about my age So, I guess I have to admit, and thank you, Janet, for saying that you're also in the club. So, the other thing I'd like to clarify that was in the newspaper is that I have worked more than 4 years. And as a matter of fact, I worked 34 years in teaching. So you all did not have to pay my pension for the last 4 years. Robin talked about our family history, and Bob and I have so many stories about growing up at the Mountain House. And well, you could stay all night, it still wouldn't be done. But we do have a lot of old German documents, and we enjoy looking back at that, and it goes right back to my grandfather's birth certificate. May 22nd, 1876, so 143 years ago today. So I'll say, happy birthday, Opa. And Opa is German for grandpa. Calvin talked about how it's really important to have a wonderful life partner. And yes, Jim Bailey, I have been so blessed to be married to Jim. You all know that he's a great community person, but he is absolutely wonderful, and supportive of the family, and has just been terrific. And his sister Dorothy is with us tonight, and nephew John, and friend Ann. So what a wonderful family. Thank you. You all know that we lost a his son David in 1995, and it was really, really hard. And at the time also, we had that fantastic feeling of support from all of you and many people in this community that we really barely knew, but you know, people understand problems, suffering, trouble, and that was the worst possible time, but in many ways it brought out so much good for us also. And after I retired from teaching, I just knew that I needed to learn more about mental illness. And one of the first things I did was took a NAMI family-to-family class at Burlington. And I see many NAMI friends here. And my friend Terry Winterbottom and I started teaching a class. And it was really, really excellent to learn more about these really devastating brain diseases. And there's still a lot to learn. I see faces here of people who have shared those classes with us and been part of that group, and it is a fantastic group. So I was a consultant for state ed at one time, and we wrote up Regents exams. And there was a woman, the Spanish expert was a woman named Dolores Mita, and one time she said, "Are you going to stay on it?" And I was like, "I don't know," and drive to Albany and all that stuff. And she says, "Just say yes." So I thought, okay. So I think saying yes has been like, yeah, I think I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. And I have had some rather interesting experiences beyond teaching. I'll just mention a couple of them. Louise is here. She's Quebecoise. I traced a family history back to 16th century Quebec for a lady, and that was fascinating. And of course, it was in French. I visited my grandfather's birthplace in East Germany. I have explained legal issues to refugees who are Francophone. Of course, I tutored Tommy, and I got to see inside Ted Liggety's house where Tommy was living, so that was fun. We were on laptops. And just this past March, I was on the floor of the Vapor Stone rail systems, doing some interpreting for a visiting engineer from Leipzig, Germany. So it's interesting where these things can lead you. I'll just finish with a theme. Friendship without borders is the theme that my friend Marika and I have developed through the Gap Exchange. And I think we talk a lot about borders right now, and I think we can all realize that if we stretch a hand across that border, learn a language, learn a culture, we can really create a better world. And there are a lot of you right here doing that. So I'm very thankful for all the experiences I've had, and I'm very, very thankful to see all of you here tonight. So it's a great little city. Stanna can't sing. Thanks so much.
I don't know if I'm the shortest one here, but so now I would like to call up Roy Perry and Doug Guerin.
What an honor it is to be here this evening. I'm going to read, not sing, the first stanza of a children's song. It goes like this: drop a pebble in the water, just a splash, and it's gone. But there's 100 ripples circling on and on and on, spreading from the center, flowing out to the sea. And there's no way of telling where the end is going to be. Roy is my pebble. And he asked me, and I was very honored to introduce him at this ceremony, because I would say yes to a man that I both admire and aspire to become like. So when we talk about the over 70 crowd, I'm not quite there yet, but people like you that inspired the younger generations like us to get out there and do more for our community. So thank you all for everything that you do. Looks like so let's take a look at the resume of Roy Perry. He was born in 1932 in Maspeth, Queens. His father was a New York City police officer who also spent time in service while Roy was growing up. He sadly told me that his father never said that he loved him, which I understand was far too common back then. But that turned Roy into a man who had a life mission, making sure his children, his wife, and all the other people that he'd come to know and love in his life heard those words, "I love you," and felt that love through his actions. And I'm one of the lucky recipients of that. In college, he majored in pre-med and was in the Marine Reserves. After college, he became active duty at the end of the Korean War, so he never saw combat. He did learn to fly planes. He retired from the Marines after 20 years. That's where he grew to love flying and became a private pilot. He owned his own plane, a Piper Warrior, which he used in his future profession, including reading to youth, which I'll get to in a moment. Roy then worked for the Upjohn Company in New York City before he was happily transferred to the North Country. It was here that he met his wife-to-be, Barbara Copeland. Hi, Barb.
We have matching hairdos.
You too. He left Upjohn and worked for Albany Regional Medical Program, delivering postgraduate medical programs for medical professionals in the area. When funding dried up for that program, he went into real estate, where he became the co-owner of Century 21 Foote Ryan, and spent 26 years in that profession. Some of his more notable civic contributions, and again, like everyone else that has said before me, too many to list, but I'll mention some. He's been a member of the Lions Club for 35 plus years, working on vision preservation, most notably with an elementary eye screening program, which helps identify eye disease early on and provide resources for corrective. He helps with the Election Day dinner fundraiser at the Brew Community Church to assist with fundraising for that group, as well as the turkey trot and other activities. He's been a Shriner for 33 years, again working to help raise money for children at the Shriners Hospital. He's a member of the Elks Club in Keysville. He's been a Mason for 40 years. He's a church elder and a volunteer at the Vacation Bible School at Peru Community Church. He's been on numerous committees, sharing his wisdom, his energy, and his knowledge to help enhance whatever mission or goal that committee has. And those are all great things, especially when we credit one person with doing them all. But I'm going to be a little selfish here and talk about my Roy. The Roy who called me when I was a youth group leader and asked if I could round up some kids to come rake his leaves in the fall. Any yard service would have done it. Roy and Barb both wanted to see our church youth, and they would be out there talking to the kids as they were raking and bagging, encouraging them, all the while making a generous contribution to our mission trip to Washington, D.C. The Roy who, when I needed someone to come in and read to my class a story about a man who bought a model airplane and flew it, Roy said, "Sure, I'll even bring a plane for the kids to see." That's Mr. Putter, that's correct. My students, of course, loved Roy. All kids do. He then organized a yearly field day at Marcy Field with a couple of buddies from his Aero Modelers Club. My students would go down there each spring with their lunches to watch these men fly their model airplanes and ask questions if they could. But it doesn't end there. That reading sparked an idea in Roy. Sable Forks was a long drive for him from his home in Peru. Peru Elementary was right up the road. So he went down and asked if he could volunteer to either read or be read to the second graders there. I missed an opportunity, but the kids in Peru sure gained one. For the past 8 years, Roy has spent 4 days a week, 2 hours a day, having students read to him stories and just feeling the love this man has to give. Okay? Understand now, he started this when he was 78 years old. He credits me with getting him started, but isn't that just like Roy, to deflect the spotlight off himself? and onto others. I dropped a pebble. He rode the wave. Just another example of his giving nature. About 6 years ago, Roy started going to the SUNY Plattsburgh girls hockey games. The magnet that Roy is, started talking to some of the folks that were there, parents who traveled long distance to come see their students play, and started offering up help. You know, if your daughter needs anything, here's my number. If there's anything I can do for you. Then he started befriending the girls. Before you know it, he was the grandfather of the team. To this day, he stays in touch with the parents as well as some of the players, some of who have gone on to play for the Canadian and National Women's Hockey Leagues. That's Roy, not a complacent observer, but instead asking, what can I do for you? Roy gives of himself literally. He was a regular donator of blood at the CVPH Blood Donor Center, donating 154 pints of blood before a health concern stopped him from donating. But like the Roy I know, he would come to my youth group at our church and start encouraging the youth of our group to consider giving since he was unable to. Always paying it forward. That's Roy. We all have something to give. Some just give more than others. We all have talents to share, energy to spare, and time to give. But the people we honor in this room go beyond the norm. I leave you with a quote from the Dalai Lama, not just for Roy, or for all the others being honored here, but for everyone here in this room. Just as those ripples spread out when a single pebble is dropped in the water, the actions of individuals can have far-reaching effects. Roy, you've touched my life, the lives of the youth in our church, and countless others. I introduce you to Roy Perry, a true rock who's the pebble that sends us
I gotta tell you, if it wasn't for Doug, I wouldn't be here tonight. He spoke about the he spoke about the time that I spent down in his class, his second grade class at Osage Valley Elementary School. And I was driving home one day after that event, and I said, I had so much fun, I think I'll stop at the Prue School, which is very close to where I live. And I went in the office there, and I said, do you need a volunteer or any volunteers? So they took my name, phone number. The next day I got a call from Kelly Crowley. Her name was Kelly Kivett, she married now. And she said, can you come over and meet with Mr. Osborne, who was the principal at the time? And I said, sure. So I went over and met with Mr. Osborne and Kelly, and they interviewed me, and they said, when can you start? So I said, I can start tomorrow, and I did. So I've been there for 8 years, and the reason I'm there is because of the friendship that Doug and I have, and have had for so many years. Let me tell you something about my relationship with Doug. You know, we all, hopefully you all, have healthcare proxies and living wills. Doug is one of the 2 people on my living will that get to pull the plug when the time comes. I really do.
You know, if you'd let me.
One now, not now. But in any case, having been at the Peru Primary School, I've worked with some of the best teachers on the planet. 2 of them are here tonight, right over there. Put your hand up there, would you? I'd love to see it. Having been there, I've met some of the best teachers on the planet, and there are 2 of them there. And I also have met the kids, these second graders are 7 and 8 years old. And some of these young kids are going to be future leaders of the world. And I got to tell you, I love it when I go into school in the morning and they all say, hi, Mr. Perry, how you doing? And, you know, we kind of share our greetings in the morning. Uh-oh, I think I broke something. Probably never get up. Oh, you got it. Hope it didn't break. Is it okay? Try not to do that again. But I'd like to thank, again, a few people, and one of them is Doug, of course, because he did a great job with the introduction and brought back a lot of memories for me. Also, he mentioned Scott Osborne, Kelly Crowley, and also Robin Cordell, who wrote the article in the paper for all of us, all 6 of us. She did a beautiful job, and I really appreciate that. So I just wanted to share, how much time do I have? After 8 years, I could be up here for another half hour. I get to work with the future leaders of the world, the best teachers on the planet, and I want to tell you 2, maybe a 3rd event that took place that I'll never forget. Little Charlotte, the first day I worked with her, we're walking down the hall to the area that we work in, where they read their program, and little Charlotte stops, looks at me and says, "Mr. Berry, is this going to take very long?" And I said, "What, do you got a date or something?" The other little guy, occasionally when I'm there at school, I wear a cap that says United States Marine Corps veteran. And I had it on the table, and we're doing our thing, and he looks at that hat, and he says to me, "Mr. Perry, thank you for your service." I almost cried, and I might cry right now. That's these young kids, as you know, the people that are teachers here work with kids, you know they don't have filters. They say whatever comes to their mind. And I have made mental notes of some of these things, and I don't want to share some of them because they're sad stories, what's going on at home. And I wish I could fix those things, but I can't. However, I can make them feel good about themselves because I give them the encouragement and tell them that they're doing well, even though they may not be, and I have them all brainwashed to think. I say, 1,000 years from now, I want you to remember this. To be a good student, you have to be a lot of things. And one of them is to be a good reader. And they are all remembering that as they go on and on in upper grades. Because if you can't read well, you're not going to make it. So, having said all of that, I'll cut it off because I have a lot more to say, but I know somebody's going to give me the hook. Thank you for all the people that were responsible for getting us here tonight, and I really appreciate the honor. It's been fun. I'm going to be 87 in September, and I'm going to keep going on.
Not everybody knows, but I used to teach Head Start many years ago, and my mentor said to me, if you can reach 1 child a year, then you're doing a good job. So it sounds to me like he's doing a lot more than that. So I would like to invite up Jackie Sabrin and Emily Sullivan, and I also would like to let you know that Jackie will also be accepting the certificate for her husband, Richard, who was not able to join us tonight, so she will be accepting that on his behalf.
Okay, I've got my readers and I'm only 60-something. I wrote it down because, boy, I could bring a phone book and not get through half of what we all might say about each other. My name's Emily Sullivan, and on meeting Jackie in 2000, I was instantly spellbound by her generosity and enthusiasm. Just 3 weeks ago, I watched a group of SUNY ceramic students hosted at the Sabrins for a ragu firing workshop. become just as smitten, excited, and challenged as I had been 20 years ago by her. Today I find these traits of Jackie's just as vibrant, even though her step is a bit lighter. I know that as one of our 6 over 70 awardees today, it is best to never underestimate what she, or what they as volunteers will get done while I am taking a breath. I was a new art teacher here in Plattsburgh when the Sabrins first volunteered to provide my program invaluable workshops and resources with projects such as the Empty Bowls fundraising and community service project. Just last week, Jackie invited me to an Empty Bowls workshop at the Ted K Center, where they continue to provide this project. The Sabrins are good at locating a need and an opportunity to connect students, educators, and our community together, making their individual efforts multiply and continue on. My contact with the Sabrins has always been around the arts and clay in particular, and their efforts have impacted so many community members. Jackie was the dynamo, but Dick, a constant and solid presence, quietly there wherever I found Jackie, with his steady smile and helpful nature, turns out to be the only one who can keep pace. Dick was instrumental in the Empty Bowls programs getting to schools and community resources like the Ted K Center, the raccoon firing workshops, the maintenance of the Stone Ledge Sculpture Garden at their property, the North Country Cultural Center for the Arts, and the Strand Clay Studio. Someone asked me, who was sending lots of info, like, say this and remember this, how many pounds of clay do you think Dick Sabrins moved? And I couldn't even begin to tell you. Dick Sabrin also has strong ties with the Disabled American Veterans Association, the Peru Hospice, the Peru Youth Bureau, and was the founder of the Open Gym program at the Peru schools. Jackie Sabrin, dynamo that she is, has made a tremendous difference in the lives of people in the community by vigorously, eloquently, and at times unwaveringly insisting that the arts are essential and an invaluable community resource. This artist, educator, and administrator helped found the North Country Center for the Arts and served as the Arts and Education Volunteer Coordinator for 10 years. Having just completed the 375th firing of the community-based raccoon clay program, she also co-founded the North Country Potteries Guild, and for 25 years has served on the Peru Free Library Board. We come together today to thank and celebrate those who volunteer, advocate, mentor, and befriend those in our community who need our help or see a job that needs doing. As Jackie was quoted in the paper today, don't think about it, just do something about it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Emily actually typed that out for me so that since I can't hear, she knew I wouldn't hear, so I appreciate that. This is my daughter Livy, who came up today. She took half a day off school and she's gonna get back there tomorrow for the back half of her day. And she'll represent my husband, who had a couple more stents put in yesterday, so I wouldn't let him come here tonight. So, and that's not easy to keep him close at home when no one's there. So. I wanted to thank everyone who worked with this, all of the supporters, and especially all the people in here. And I think I know almost everybody, which is pretty exciting for me to know that you have an interest to helping other people. And I was thinking the other day, when I had to think about this, what I was doing for tonight, how many things have I volunteered, for over the years? And I always think, I never really called it that. I mean, that was a term, and I remember thinking, I'll write a grant for something. And what am I putting at the end? Respectfully submitted, Jackie Saber, and it always sounded so redundant, volunteer. It's like, I never going to get that grant. But that's really what you are when you help somebody else. And I think we all do it, probably 10 times a day. You're doing something for somebody all the time. And I can't imagine not doing that. The other part of this, I know Dick is not hyperactive, but I think I am now. It's taken me 70 years to figure this out, because I still have lots of energy, and I'm like riding the lawnmower in the sculpture garden and thinking, oh, well, that looks like a good thing I can do. And I'm thinking, you do enough, just, do those things well. But then I think, no, that sounds really exciting. So I don't know if that's hyperactivity, but I think that's how I've been able to do all these things. That's the main way. The other way is my family and my friends, who have always been there for me in so many ways. They hardly ever say no to me. And I know they probably, when I go over there and say, oh, Tammy, you want to come work with 300 kids with me tomorrow in an art project? And she'll go, just tell me what to do, okay. And I think she always opens the door when I'm there. Like how lucky that is. And my friends have always done that. As I'm sure most of you have the same thing. When they know that you want to do something, they'll do that. But I look around and I see my very first friend when I moved to the North Country, sitting there, Sally Gibson, and she still is my friend after all the things she's done for me and done for the community. And I look at Carlene, who can't ever do enough. She's my second friend. And then I just look around at my book club friends and my teaching friends, and I'm just so very lucky. And that's what keeps me going and keeps me volunteering. Dick, we know, as a more quiet person, and he will volunteer, but he doesn't do it as often as I, because I think I keep him too busy. So, you might not see him out doing his own things as much, but he's pretty busy, but it's because I asked him to do that. So I don't think he's ever really refused. Right? So I want to thank everybody for this opportunity, and just keep passing it along, and we'll just keep going.
So after we conclude this evening, if I could just have the recipients up here for just a few minutes so we can take a couple of group pictures, that would be very helpful. Thank you. In closing, I would like to thank this selection committee. So each year, after the first year, we've decided to ask the past recipients to get together, and we give them the nominations that people have brought in all year, and they actually select the people for the next year. So they did a fantastic job and picked most wonderful And I know a lot of people thanked me tonight, but there was a whole lot more than just me. Just the one that gets to be at the microphone. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank our 6 over 70 committee, and that would be Chapel Hill Foundation and President Dr. Richard Frost. In collaboration with Julie Stalker from JCEO. Julie, Carrie Haley from the Foundation of CVPH. Our new Director of Office for the Aging, Darlene Cowlins. Rachel Maria Brown and myself from the Senior Citizens Council. And also the United Way of the Adirondack region have been very helpful in this process as well. So, and one more time, let's give it up for our wonderful honorees. And that concludes our wonderful evening. Thank you all for coming.